When it gets a whipping, it goes crazy, and somebody could actually get hurt by the thing. Think of a fire hose this big around, right? I mean, it just...
When Chris Doumitt stepped away from Gold Rush, most people assumed the answer was simple. He was exhausted. Viewers pointed fingers at Parker Schnabel's brutal 10,000-ounce target, the endless shifts, the non-stop pressure, and sure, that played a role, but it wasn't the whole truth. What really happened was something far deeper, an unseen struggle off camera where loyalty collided with ambition and money entered the equation. This wasn't a story the show ever told. Chris wasn't just another worker on the crew. He was the foundation holding everything together. He managed 3 enormous wash plants, controlled every cleanup, and turned total disorder into historic gold totals. When things should have fallen apart, Chris kept them standing. He didn't just put in effort, he made miracles happen. But Parker's drive kept pushing further, demanding more than any one person could realistically give. Eventually, Chris hit his limit. This wasn't about being tired. This wasn't about giving up. It was a defining choice. Chris decided he would no longer be treated like a replaceable cog in a massive machine. He chose not to trade his health, dignity, and personal life for someone else's legacy. So when Chris walked away, it wasn't simply a resignation. It was a message, a moment that proved even in a world obsessed with gold, loyalty has boundaries, and unchecked ambition can crush even the strongest people. Stick around for the full breakdown. Like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications as we uncover the truth behind Gold Rush in a way you've never seen before. It all started with Parker's boldest declaration yet. Standing in the unforgiving Yukon wilderness, the young mining boss unveiled a plan that sounded almost unreal. He wasn't chasing a decent season. He was aiming for numbers so massive they would redefine what success in mining even looked like. The target was unbelievable. Enough gold to be worth tens of millions, enough to fill multiple bank vaults. To make that dream real, Parker made a call that would ultimately fracture his relationship with his most trusted man. He chose to operate 3 giant wash plants at the same time, something no one had ever seriously attempted at this scale. The Red Giant, their reliable workhorse. The Crusher, a beast capable of chewing through hundreds of yards every hour. And Slucifer, the flagship system, behind their biggest wins. 3 plants meant triple the material, triple the stress, and triple the responsibility, all landing on a single person. That person was Chris Doumitt. Years later, Chris finally spoke openly about what those last months truly felt like. His words reveal the reality of a professional pushed far past reasonable limits. People think mining is all about massive machines and moving dirt, Chris explained. But everything comes down to the final processing room. Miss even a fraction, and months of work are gone. That gold room was always Chris's territory, a place where precision determined whether the season ended in triumph or total failure. Under normal conditions, managing cleanup from 2 wash plants already demanded razor-sharp focus and countless hours of painstaking precision. But when 3 plants were pushed into operation at the same time, Chris instantly understood the truth. This wasn't sustainable. I remember staring at the pile-ups coming in from all 3 sites, Chris later admitted. And right then, I knew I was in over my head before I'd even begun. Still, Parker's plan allowed no hesitation. The entire season depended on keeping every system running at full throttle. There was no flexibility, no buffer. The math was ruthless. Triple the incoming material, the same 24 hours in a day, and zero tolerance for mistakes. One slip could wipe out weeks of grueling labor for the entire crew. Chris had spent years building a reputation as the man who never complained, someone who handled impossible situations quietly and delivered results no matter the cost. For more than a decade, he had been the steady force that transformed bold ideas into tangible gold. But this season pushed beyond anything he had faced before. As the weeks dragged on, the pressure of processing non-stop material from 3 plants began to take a serious toll. I was pulling 16 to 18-hour days, Chris explained. My hands were shaking from exhaustion. I couldn't remember the last real meal I'd had or the last full night of sleep. But the goal didn't stop, and every ounce had to be flawless. The crew noticed the change. The calm, light-hearted presence that once steadied the team during chaos slowly disappeared, replaced by a hardened focus aimed purely at surviving each day. The breaking point came during a brutal stretch when mechanical failures caused material to back up from all 3 plants at once. Chris worked nearly 20 hours straight, finally stopping only when his hands shook too badly to handle the precision scales. For the first time in his career, Chris spoke up. He asked for help. Parker's response was logical, but it exposed the core problem. Someone would have to be pulled from field operations to assist in the gold room. But every operator was already critical. Removing anyone from excavators or haul trucks risked choking the entire operation elsewhere. Chris proposed a last resort solution. Tatiana Costa, one of their most capable operators, though she had no experience in gold recovery. It was a gamble forced by impossible conditions. Tatiana is incredibly skilled, Chris said later, but gold processing isn't something you master overnight. One wrong move, one moment of inexperience, and everything we'd worked for could be gone. The decision was made, but by then, something had already broken. Chris's confidence in the operation was damaged beyond repair. The message was unmistakable. Meeting Parker's ambitious targets mattered more than protecting the well-being of his most loyal crew member. What Chris revealed next stunned those who thought exhaustion alone explained his exit. The physical strain was only half the story. People think I left because I was worn out, Chris explained, but the real issue was respect. After everything he had contributed, years of sacrifice, expertise, and loyalty, Chris felt he was being treated like disposable machinery, something to be pushed until it failed. That realization exposed a fracture that had been quietly growing for years. While the operation generated millions, the people doing the most dangerous and demanding work saw only a small share of that success. As the person responsible for maximizing gold recovery, the difference between average seasons and record-breaking ones, Chris felt his compensation no longer reflected his true value. The final confrontation happened inside Parker's office trailer on a rainy evening, after Chris had completed yet another massive cleanup. The numbers on the scale represented hundreds of thousands of dollars in gold. Yet Chris felt no pride, only frustration. "We need to talk about how profits are divided," Chris said plainly. Parker looked up, clearly surprised. In all their years together, Chris had never raised financial concerns. Parker responded by pointing to the record-setting success of the operation. "Everyone was benefiting," he said. "Everyone?" Chris replied. The word hung heavy in the diesel-filled air. What followed was a heated exchange that revealed 2 completely different philosophies. Chris believed success should be shared with the people who made it possible, the operators, the mechanics, and especially the person turning raw dirt into profit. Parker saw it another way. The risk was his. The vision was his. The mine was his. The crew were employees, well paid, but ultimately replaceable. Then came the words that ended everything. "If you can't handle the workload and responsibility," Parker said, frustration finally boiling over, "maybe you're not the right person for this role anymore." Chris was stunned. After years of unwavering loyalty and sacrifice, after helping build the operation from the ground up, he realized how easily he could be dismissed. "That was the moment," Chris reflected later, "when I understood I wasn't a partner or even truly valued. I was just skilled equipment expected to run until I broke." The conversation forced him to face what he'd been avoiding. He had become an asset to be maximized for someone else's gain, regardless of the personal cost. Chris also revealed how the network and Parker's team carefully shaped the story of his departure. Burnout and retirement became the official explanation: safe, clean, and non-controversial. "They needed a version that honored my work without raising questions about conditions or profit sharing," Chris explained. The truth didn't fit the image. Statements were polished. Interviews avoided sensitive topics. The real reasons behind the split were reduced to a version that protected everyone, except Chris. Within the mining world, people knew the truth. But on camera, only one narrative mattered. The physical exhaustion was real, but the emotional toll ran deeper. "I wasn't just tired," Chris admitted. "I was losing who I was. The mentor, the problem solver, the guy who brought humor into tense moments, that person was fading under relentless pressure." Other longtime crew members saw it too. His steady presence was replaced by cold efficiency, focused solely on output. Eventually, Chris realized he had two choices. He could stay until the pressure erased everything he valued about himself, or he could leave while he still recognized the man he wanted to be. Walking away meant sacrificing serious income and a career that had defined him for years. But staying meant accepting a life where worth was measured only in productivity, not dignity. Chris's exit sent shockwaves through the operation. The crew suddenly understood that loyalty wasn't protection. If someone as essential as Chris could be pushed aside, anyone could. The family-like atmosphere vanished, replaced by calculation and caution. Without Chris's expertise, recovery efficiency dropped noticeably. New workers couldn't replicate his precision or consistency. Mistakes became common, mistakes that once would have been unthinkable. "They tried to minimize my role," Chris said, but the numbers told the real story. Through it all, Chris remained grateful to the fans who recognized his contribution. "People watched for years. They knew what I brought. When the official story didn't add up, they felt it." For Chris, leaving wasn't about quitting. It was about preserving self-respect. And he hoped his story might resonate with others facing similar situations. "Sometimes," he said, "the strongest thing you can do is walk away, even when staying feels easier." Returning to his carpentry workshop wasn't just a career shift. It was a return to who he truly was. "Working with wood reminded me why I loved building things in the first place," Chris shared. "It's about precision, craftsmanship, and pride. Patience and valuing craftsmanship over sheer output. Qualities the mining operation had slowly abandoned. Making that shift took a kind of bravery most people never have to test. Walking away from serious money and industry status meant rebuilding his life almost from scratch. But for the first time in years, Chris was in control of his own time and rediscovered what genuine fulfillment from work actually felt like. "People ask if I regret leaving all that money behind," Chris said. "But there's no joy in wealth if you don't recognize the person you became to earn it." Sometimes, he realized, the most valuable thing you can uncover isn't buried in the ground. it's your sense of self-worth. The Yukon left Chris with hard-earned lessons about ambition, loyalty, and knowing when to step away. The Klondike breaks people in different ways, he reflected. Some lose their savings, others lose their health, and some lose who they are chasing someone else's vision. I was fortunate enough to see it happening before I lost what mattered most. Within the mining world, Chris's story became a warning about the human cost of relentless pressure, but it also became something else, proof that choosing dignity over dollars is possible, even when the stakes feel overwhelming. My experience connects with people because almost everyone knows what it's like to feel overlooked or used, Chris observed. The difference is, I reached a point where I could actually walk away. Despite everything, Chris holds no bitterness toward Parker. He's extremely talented and driven, Chris acknowledged. What he built is remarkable. But success comes with consequences, and I don't think he fully saw those at the time. Chris hopes their story serves as a lesson. Some things outweigh gold, and the people who help you find it deserve respect. I hope Parker learned that, even if the lesson came at a high cost for both of us. In the industry, Chris Doumitt's exit became more than just a staffing change. It became a symbol of worker dignity in environments where profit often comes before people. If my story helps even one person stand up for themselves, Chris said, then everything I went through was worth it. His legacy isn't defined by ounces recovered or money earned. It's defined by the quiet strength of a craftsman who refused to let ambition erase his integrity. For years, a polished version of Chris's departure protected everyone, except the one person who needed protection most. Speaking out now wasn't about anger or revenge, it was about honesty. People cared about watching our operation succeed, Chris explained. They deserved the real story, not just the version that kept everything looking good. And that truth is far more complex than simple burnout, more human than corporate explanations, and far more meaningful than preserving a television-friendly image. At its core, this is the story of a good man who gave everything to someone else's dream, until he finally remembered the value of his own. In the end, Chris Doumitt found something far more valuable than the richest claim in the Yukon: the knowledge of his own worth and the courage to protect it. That discovery, more than any amount of gold, is real wealth, and it can never be taken away. Chris's decision didn't just change his own life. It quietly reshaped how many people viewed the entire gold rush operation. Long after he left, conversations around campfires and equipment yards carried a new undercurrent of caution. Crew members began asking themselves questions they'd never dared to ask before. How far is too far? When does dedication turn into sacrifice? And who really pays the price for record-breaking seasons? Without Chris there to absorb the pressure, the cracks in the system became harder to hide. The gold room no longer ran like a perfectly tuned instrument. Cleanups took longer. Errors multiplied. The confidence that once defined the operation faded, replaced by constant troubleshooting and second-guessing. What Chris had made look effortless was suddenly revealed as rare mastery earned through years of discipline and care. Chris, meanwhile, found something he hadn't felt in a long time: peace. His days were quieter, his work slower, but more deliberate. Each finished piece in his workshop carried a sense of completion that gold totals never had. There were no cameras, no countdowns, no impossible targets, just the satisfaction of building something well and knowing it would last. He doesn't deny that mining gave him unforgettable experiences or lifelong friendships, but he's clear about one thing: no amount of money is worth losing your identity. You don't notice it happening, Chris reflected. You think you're just pushing through another hard season. And then one day, you realize you don't recognize yourself anymore. That awareness saved him. And in sharing his truth, Chris gave voice to countless workers, inside and outside mining, who feel trapped between ambition and self-respect. His story isn't about failure. It's about choosing humanity in a system that rewards endurance over well-being. Gold may have built the empire, but walking away preserved the man. And that choice, more than any fortune pulled from the Yukon ground, defines who Chris Doumitt truly is. Chris's silence is finally over. And the truth carries more weight than any official narrative ever could. Thanks for watching. If you want more real, behind-the-scenes stories from Gold Rush, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications because you won't want to miss what comes next.